morning, afternoon, evening. Greetings wherever you are. I'm Unzube Ufodike, founding chair of the BCS Embrace. We are one of the special interest groups here at the British Computer Society, the Chartered Institute for IT. And what we're all about is making IT better for society. Within BCS Embrace, we do this with a focus on ethnicity and race. We're proud to be supported by BCS Women, another special interest group at the BCS, focused on the gender lens within the IT sector. For this event today, we have an amazing panel that's been put together by my colleague, Alvin. Alvin, I'll introduce shortly, and he'll be taking you through what to expect for the rest of the evening. But he's a cybersecurity student, cybersecurity and digital forensics student at Middlesex University, and a volunteer here with us at BCS Embrace. And he will be running through the format we have and what to expect for the rest of the evening. I'm excited. We have some amazing individuals on the panel talking about their award-winning, multi-million-pound raising and revenue-generating apps. So there's a lot to go through. Without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to my colleague, Alvin, to take it away. Thanks again for joining us at BCS Embrace, and thank you, Alvin, for putting this together. Take care.
Thank you very much, Nuzebe, for your kind words. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this event. Mobile makers, success stories from award-winning app developers. What you're going to be expecting today is two panelists, both excellent in their own way, and they will share their personal journey into the IT industry, focusing on the creation of successful software. They will also discuss acquiring and applying knowledge to develop their successful products as they are viable and well-performing into the ever-growing landscape of available applications. Now I'm going to introduce you to your moderator for your night, Mame-Yaa Bonsu. She is the first hire to join the newly created Renewables and Transitions deal at the UK Export Finance. Her senior role focuses on leveraging innovative finance and clean technology to address climate change. Previously, she founded MYB Ventures and a fintech blockchain advisory focused on financial inclusion and disruptive innovation. She has graduated with a distinction in Master's Information Systems and Digital Innovation from the London School of Economics and holds an undergrad in Information Management for Business. And your two panelists are Alena Golden. She's a co-founder and CEO of the mobile music platform Rap Game and a suite of music apps with over 20 million downloads under the Rap Tech Studios umbrella. The app delivers accessible and technology advanced products to unite people regardless of their background with a love of music, rap, and creativity. She additionally speaks to startups about international growth, business, and challenges. She has a master's in data processing from the University College London and was a research assistant in the medical informatics at Heidelberg University. And finally, Taiwo Omisore. He's a software engineer specializing in mobile and web development, recently achieving editor's choice for the game One Chance on the Apple App Store. For the past 3 years, he has worked with advertising company Unreally as a software engineer specializing in research and development. Within this role, he created numerous test apps, prototypes using web, mobile, and native programming languages. On the side, he is a volunteer IT programming teacher at Guinness Trust Housing Association, teaching elderly residents how to introduce the internet and also help with their digital skill sets. Now, I must say this is amazing, and I'm going to hand it over to Mame-Yaa. Over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Alvin, for the introduction. And I'm really delighted to be working and volunteering with the BCS Embrace group to help facilitate this discussion with two amazing app entrepreneurs. So without further ado, let us proceed. So you've had the kind introduction of myself by Alvin, and next I'll be introducing Taiwo and Alena to give us an overview of their backgrounds before we then delve into some Q&A. I'll be having a selection of pre-prepared questions, and then I also encourage all of you in the audience to please think about any questions you may have. Feel free to add them to the chat or to the Q&A box below, or feel free to direct them directly to Alvin, who will be collating questions that I will then answer as, I will then put in front of our panelists to answer as we progress with our discussion. So let me first introduce Alena. And Alena, who is the CEO of Rap Tech, if you could please give us a brief overview of your background, highlighting your experience in developing apps.
Yes, thank you so much for the intro. My name is Alena. I'm a co-founder and CEO of a company called Rap Tech Studios. We build music apps. We enable people to record songs using their phones. And we currently have 3 apps in our portfolio and over 20 million downloads across our 3 apps. Our largest app is called Rap Fame, and it's all about enabling people to try themselves as rap artists who just want to explore it, or those who already have expertise in recording music, just to bring it to the next level. So this whole company started quite a while ago. Originally, I'm from Belarus. I studied computer science, but I always wanted to be a journalist. And this kind of internal battle was always between being creative, but also being technical. And after a few years, after my graduation, my brother, who is now my co-founder, one of my co-founders, actually suggested we start doing like a side business, which was at that time like a consultancy agency. We were building mobile apps for different customers. So we were not fully startup founders. We were just helping others, those who have business ideas, to implement and to build apps. I took myself a course in Android development because I was really interested. I think it was 2014, 2015. So I took a course in Android development. And yeah, we just started. We had a few clients. And after a few years, we realized that we are ready to give a go to our own idea, which was helping the hip hop community, people who want to try themselves as artists, or just those who, like have just like regular jobs, like a regular life, but want to get this outlet to their creativity. And we really wanted to help such people because this is who we are as well. We kind of knew that we won't be able to become musicians professionally, but this love for rap music was always there. So we decided to bring this together, our passion and our expertise for mobile apps together. And back in 2016, we started doing our first app, and then it kind of all evolved. And by now we have 3 apps, and the largest app is called Rap Fame, with about 600,000 monthly active users globally, and a team of 15 people. So I'll be happy to answer the questions that the audience might have about the full journey from zero to a portfolio of apps.
Fantastic. Thank you for that comprehensive introduction. And then let me hand the virtual mic over to Taiwo, just to give you a flavor of who you are.
Fantastic. Hi, I'm Taiwo. Taiwo Omisore. I am a app developer based in Southeast London. So I started my app journey probably around 10 years ago. So I've always had an interest in technology and people. And I was working a corporate job for a grocery company, and I had a very long commute. So I started building an app during this commute. I had 3 hours to kill every single day. And I was just watching YouTube videos, reading books, Coming from a computer science background, but working in a job that didn't really exploit any of those skills, I kind of had to relearn a lot of the stuff, and I started building this app. I would talk to people on the train and ask for their opinion on this game that I was building. It was kind of a take on Arkanoid or Breakout, if you're familiar with those arcade games. And people would look at me very puzzled as I shoved the phone in their face asking for feedback. But people were very receptive and very helpful, giving very great feedback in terms of UI, UX, and gameplay elements that I could add. I released the game in 2014, so 9 years ago now, and kind of never looked back, and consistently released a new app every year since then. So to date have released 9 apps, probably with a combined total downloads of well over 1 million, and I do everything. So the design, the coding, the marketing, the QA, everything. So it's been a roller coaster, but I've just enjoyed every single minute of it, and very happy to share the story in detail.
Wonderful. Thank you for that really interesting introduction. I have lots of questions are popping into my head as well. And I'm sure you must be famous on certain train lines by the sounds of it. Great. Okay, so as I mentioned before in the beginning, I'm going to be going through some pre-prepared questions, but please, those of you that have carved out the time to attend this event, please feel free to jot down any questions you're thinking of and then type them into the chat box, or you can direct those questions to our host, Al Gassaji, and then he can also compile the questions there. Great. So I'll make sure that we periodically ask your questions as and when you have questions come into your minds. Okay, so the first question I have is that I think you're both operating in a very competitive space. You know, I think apps are probably the hottest tech real estate there is out there, and we all have limited capacity on our phones and have to make difficult decisions about which apps we choose to keep or not keep. So I'm wondering, in the first place, how did the idea for your project come to you? Did you follow a passion, or was there a problem you were trying to solve? I think, Alena, you mentioned that you were already, you know, exercising those muscles of building apps by helping others, and then all of a sudden you entered the rap world. And may I also highlight the fact that being a woman in the rap world also must have been quite an interesting journey as well. So let me start off with you. How did the idea of the project come to you?
Yeah, so I grew up being a big fan of Eminem. So 8 Mile movie was my favorite movie. And we basically just decided to bring this idea. So our first app was actually in the space of rap battles. And you record a track and then you challenge someone. Maybe it's a random user, maybe it's your friend, and then this person responds and the whole community votes and decides who is the best. And it's all happening online, and there were no limits. So what was so inspiring that there were no geographical limitations to it. You can challenge anyone in the world. And that app grew quite successfully because I think there was a gap in the market. There was demand for it. And especially it was, I think, 2015, 16, 17. The rap battle kind of subculture was on the increase. So clearly we get a lot of organic demand for it. Yeah, so and in terms of the actual decision to build it, we had a gap, so we didn't have clients at some point of time, and we had a team of, I think it was maybe 5 of us in total, and there was no work to do. And we were like, okay, maybe let's use this time as something to that we can. Maybe we should try building our own product. So it all came together.
Fantastic. So quite an organic process. So just following your passion, inspired by a film and a particular artist, and then following your passion to then building the app. So fascinating. And then same question to Taiwo. So it sounds like the idle time of your train journey was a spark.
Yeah.
Tell us more about how that idea of the project came to you.
Yeah, definitely. I think I really wanted to build something that anyone could play. With my first app, I really just wanted something that my parents could play, that any kind of person that I could stop on the street could get really easily and find enjoyment. I didn't want tons of screens explaining really complex ideas and controls and gameplay and anything like that. I just wanted to be it to be super simple. And I think with touchscreen devices, you can do that. So just created a character, employed my brother, who's a very talented musician, to create the soundtrack, and then like the rest is history. But in terms of the idea for my most popular app, One Chance, which is a collection of 14 mini games that you can only ever play once. So it's very high stakes, very high pressure. I wanted to kind of flip the top metrics for app development on its head, which is retention. You know, app developers want people to stay in their apps, you know, for as long as possible, which is completely fair enough. But I wanted to do something where it was just an experience that you had once and then that was it. So it's very much a disposable app. And it's really funny that that is the most popular one, is the app that I, you know, cannot monetize at all, because people can only play it once. But people have said some really, really nice stuff. I've got some really nice feedback, and, you know, saying that that was a great experience. I shared it with my friends. We had a moment, which is definitely what I was trying to do with the app. So I think it resonated with a lot of people.
Sorry, I was on mute. Fascinating. So let me ask a follow-on question on that. So just because you were talking about making an app for a broad audience, but did you have a target audience in mind? Because the world of gaming and apps is so competitive. And I think, to your point, by breaking away from the chain and doing something different, and perhaps maybe igniting that kind of fear of missing out, FOMO, in people, was there a particular target audience you were building for?
I think for One Chance, it definitely was for everyone, but I think it seems to have particularly resonated with highly competitive people, because I get correspondence all the time saying, you know, this has caused family rifts and, you know, relationship breakdowns or whatever, which is great. I'm really glad that people are really enjoying the experience. But I think I set out for you know, and I think with all of the games and experiences that I make, to make it as accessible as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating. No, truly fascinating, especially the impact it's having in personal lives. And then the same question to you, Alena. So with the rap tech, are you focused on a particular target group, as in people making music, or is it just for the everyday enthusiast? Can they also have the same experience as maybe people who are more advanced on the music production side? I'm just curious how you were thinking about your client base.
Yeah, so that's exactly what happened to us when we started our first app, Battle Me. Even though it was quite successful and we really liked what we were doing, and we realized maybe after a few years that the audience was a little bit too niche. And we also saw that many people not necessarily want to constantly battle. Some of them want to record solo tracks or just progress as individuals, often collaborate with others. And that's how the idea of our now largest app, Rap Fame, came about. Because Rap Fame is all about your progress, all about education. And we see amazing results when a person joined, and then in a year's time, the level of music that they produce is just completely on a different level. And it's really pleasant for us as creators to see this educational component that we managed to introduce. And also, I'm really happy that now the platform is really, really friendly. The community is very supportive. And we even, I think I mentioned, when we first spoke, but I'll repeat to the audience that we even have like our first Rap Fame baby, where people met through our platform, recorded track together, collaborated, and then eventually started a family. So this is very rewarding to see this. And I think as the next step, we will consider going maybe beyond just rap genre and going into other genres. However, I would say that today, I would say confidently that rap is everywhere, and I think it's the largest music genre. And I'm quite confident in our user base. It kind of grows together with our plans. It kind of, it's really, I'm really interested to see what's next for our platform. But yeah, we try to be very inclusive in terms of user levels. If you're a complete beginner, a complete newbie, it's fine, because we will teach you. We have master classes which help you to progress. And if you're like an amateur musician who already knows how to create music, we will give you nice beats, instruments. So we will help you as well on your journey. So that's what I like as well, is that we are trying to be inclusive and help to every individual, wherever level they are at the moment, to progress and to get to the next level.
And that's really fantastic and just shows the power of community. So that's really interesting. Do you have any particular geographical focus? I'm just wondering, in your current user base, are there any countries that are highly represented?
Oh yeah, it's my favorite part to look at the map with our user base. And like, to be honest with you, it's really, really beautiful to see how global it genuinely is. Even though our marketing and digital marketing campaigns often run in the US because it's naturally the largest market and we have good organic growth there, we do see good demand everywhere. We see good demand in Africa, we see good demand in Latin America, we see good demand across all Europe. We just recently launched a so-called Eurovision region, where we united all the countries in Europe, because they're like small communities, you know, like Czech Republic. It's a tiny country, but when you put together these small countries and give them chat and they talk to each other, it actually becomes similar size to, for example, USA. And so yeah, we see it's genuinely global.
That's amazing and very, very powerful. Gosh. Okay, since we're at BCS, I think this is a very apt question to ask, just about the initial steps you took on your journey to creating the software. So I think it sounds like both of you just instinctively were self-taught. I think it sounds like a lot of, you know, using resources that are available to you were part of your journey. But were there any particular ways you needed to upskill? Was there any particular training courses that you did? Just wondering how you got yourself technically prepared for the journey ahead. So I'll start with you, Taiwo.
Great question. I think, to be honest, I'm very curious. I always like how things work. And I think with the resources that are available, most things we can learn for free. If you don't mind putting the time in, you know, having a full-time job and doing the app development on the side left very little time, little personal time. But I think there's so many resources online that you can learn anything for free. And I think what's amazing is there's so many incredible communities, whether that be on forums. So if you're really into Unity for game development, there's Unity forums, and there's so many wonderful members there that are super helpful. I think Reddit is another great website because it's all built on smaller communities. So if there's a particular programming language that you're interested in, whether that be JavaScript, Java, Swift, Kotlin, no matter what it is, there is a dedicated community full of resources that you can tap into.
Yes, thank you for that. Yes, that's really important. The fact that I think we shouldn't forget the importance of free education, and thank goodness for things like MOOCs and other resources and chat boards where there's so much information available to help with us with our self-education. And the same question to you, Alena, and it sounds like by helping others, you also help train yourself.
Yes, yes, and I actually want to say that I admire people like Taiwo who are like naturally curious and like self-disciplined, and I really, really was impressed by your story about how you made the most from your commute. I have to be brutally honest with everybody here. Unfortunately, I'm way less, how to say it, I'm very motivated, but I do need some external structure put on me, because I can easily like get lost in choice. Sometimes it's, for me, it's better to have fewer options, and then I'll just pick the one and I'll be kind of just focusing on this one. And the best is when there are external deadlines put on me. So knowing this kind of weakness, so to speak, of myself, I knew that to overcome it, I need to expose myself into some training course or somewhere where there will be like structure. And that's why I signed up for that course, the Android course. It was pretty like short, I think 2.5 months or 3 months, not expensive, but there was like a lecturer who was given every time. There was like homework, and you feel guilty if you don't do this homework. So you do it like last minute, but you do it. And it's for me personally, it was very, very helpful.
No, fantastic. And also thank you for being so honest, because I think one of the most important parts of the entrepreneurial journey, having dabbled in entrepreneurship myself, is self-management and self-awareness. So understanding yourself and then gaming your environment to help yourself, you know, meet your objectives. So I also use that approach of attending courses and the imposing peer pressure on myself to try and get things done. So that's fantastic. And the point being is that there are different ways and different learning journeys, and it's just about understanding yourself and creating a pathway for you to be successful. So thank you both for being so candid about your approach to learning and development. So at this juncture, let me quickly open up to the floor. Does anybody have any questions? So either you can put your question in the chat, or if you're feeling confident, I can open some space for you to then ask the question yourself. So please either put your hand up, or you can just pop a question in the chat box whenever you feel ready to do so, or private message either myself or Al if you prefer being anonymous. Okay. Okay, great. So we have Rebecca. You've raised your hand. Yeah, please go ahead and ask your question.
Great. First of all, hearing your stories is so inspiring. So thank you for sharing. But also, just on the back of the last question, there's so many different tech stacks that you can use for an app. What did you go for, and what informed your choices for your apps that you developed?
So let me say, Alena, do you want to start first?
Can you please paraphrase it? So what made us to choose exactly this type of apps, or you mean the learning process?
I mean, the language that you chose to develop with. So for example, was it Kotlin? What was it? And why did you make those choices?
Yes, great question. Well, I'll be honest with you, I'm a big fan of Android as a system. I prefer it to iOS, even though now I have to switch to iOS and like pay attention to iOS sometimes more, just because how the market is evolving. But my passion and like personal preference was towards Android. And when I started, it was, I think, 2014, 15. It was before Kotlin. It was Android Java. Yeah, so I just picked it because it was so so open source, so kind of no barriers. I think with Apple, they sometimes try to create this sense of kind of exclusivity across their products as well as across the system itself. And I think they now moving more and more towards Android style. But back in the day, definitely Android Studio was so much more friendly and like easy, at least for me. But yeah, as of now, the market says we do need to pay attention to iOS as well. So depending on where you are on your journey, potentially iPhones and like iOS is maybe more has more potential to some extent. I don't know, what's your thoughts on it, Taiwo? Like,
Yeah, I couldn't have put it better myself. I think it's a really difficult kind of crossroads that you get to as a developer when you're starting out, what platform to go to. And I think, to be honest, I had an iPhone, so that was my decision really made up. And I think when you look at the market in terms of revenue per app, you probably get more on the Apple side of things. For me, it's all about accessibility. If you have a Mac computer, because to develop for Apple devices, you need to use Xcode, which is only available on the Mac. So, you know, you can get it on the iPad, but it's not a development version. So you can test code, but you can't deploy any code onto devices. So I just say the best thing to do is just start. You know, I know it sounds super cheesy, but if you don't have access to a Mac and you want to build something, the skills that you'll learn will be universal and easily transferable. But the decision for me was pretty easy because I had an iPhone and I had access to a Mac computer. That was my decision made. But the first app that I made was using Unity, which is cross-platform. So the final product actually was on both platforms. So it was on Android and iOS. But I think that's a very, very good question. And I think the best piece of advice is to just go with whatever you have access to, because syntactically, the code that you're going to be learning is super transferable. Like what I know in Swift, I can apply to any other programming language, because variables, classes, all of those things are going to be the same no matter what programming language you use.
Excellent. I hope that answered your question, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for asking that question. And yes, I encourage anyone else to put your hand up, or you can put a message in the chat box, either a direct message if you want to be anonymous, or you can just put your message in the chat box or raise your hand. Thank you again, Rebecca, for asking the question. Okay, next pre-prepared question. So since we've been talking about, I guess tech stack and technical choices, I am wondering, it sounds like both of you had the self-discipline and confidence to go on a new technical journey to upskill yourselves in the world of apps. But are there any particular skill sets or qualities outside of technical skills that you think greatly contributed to your success as app builders? So I'll pose that to you, Alena, first.
Yes, it's a very good question. And I think many software engineers are often trapped in this a little bit like a narrow-minded mindset of development for the sake of development. And I think the key is to realize what are the customers' needs, what do users want. And if we really solve a pain point for them, they will then forgive you if it's not necessarily perfect or something is a little bit off. So it's a bit of a balance. But then on the other hand, of course, if you're talking about Apple, their standards are higher and people expect the app to be sleeky, and you can it's a bit of a balance. So depending on what path do you want to go on, whether it's just like a business problem that you are solving, then people are more forgiving when it's not perfect in terms of design and UI and UX. When it's like a game or like an entertainment app, of course, there it's so important to have perfect UX, perfect UI. So it's where your strengths are and where you feel like your business idea is. There you can understand what to put more thought into, which area of the app.
Sorry, that's great and very good advice again about self-awareness, being able to understand your skill set and then compensate for that elsewhere. So same question to you, Taiwo, outside of your technical skills, what do you think greatly contributed to the success of your project? And I think the first thing that jumped out at me is that the fact that you were on a train interviewing members of the public, so doing that primary research that many of us find very difficult. And it sounds like that was a very key skill you had, your communication skills and your ability to do user research. But let me not answer that question for you.
I think that's a fantastic question, and I think it's communication is hugely important. It's I'm always asking the question, what do my users, like Alena said, want? And I think when you're filling a gap, you're off to a winner. I think being able to take criticism or feedback is also a very incredible skill, because one thing that I've learned is you can think you have the best idea in the world, but that sentiment might not be shared by the rest of the world. So I think always kind of asking people, communicating with users, you know, asking for feedback, having that iterative feedback loop is really, really important. And not being afraid to change. I think it's really important, because the market changes. You might think that it's going to go a certain way and the market says something else. So being able to be malleable and flexible in what you're building. And I think one really important skill that has got me very, very far is doing it for the right reasons. Like when I started this journey, it was because I really enjoyed building stuff, and coding was a way for me to get there. I never really thought about the money, and to be honest, if I thought about the money, I would have stopped this journey a very, very long time ago, because really if I'm being completely transparent, I only really started making any money with app number 7. So that's 6 apps which didn't really make. And ironically, now that the other apps 7, 8, and 9 are doing well, the other apps are doing well. So it's really, really cool to see that. But I think the thing that I really enjoyed was that I could, like Alena said, look at a world map and just see people playing my game. And I remember when I built Spacebots in 2014, there was a game-breaking bug, and a 14-year-old teenager from Italy sent me a direct message on Twitter with an idea what might have caused the bug, because he was one of the beta testers. And I was just like, just really, really amazed that someone in a different country reached out with a fix. And that's what apps can do. You know, people can just go onto an app store, download it, have an experience, and, you know, create a family, which is incredible, friendships, communities, have fun. So that's why I got into it. So yeah, so I think, I don't know if that is a bit of a weird answer, but yeah.
No, it's a great answer. And again, just, you know, reiterating, as I said before, the power of community and the beautiful thing that apps seem to do to connect people globally and turn strangers into family, which is a really powerful, powerful thing. So actually on that topic, I think that's the perfect segue into my next question about, you know, just continuing on from the anecdotes you mentioned about your user in Italy that decided to figure out one of the challenges with the app. I'll pose this to you, Taiwo, first before we go to Alena. So how do you assess the quality of software you're creating? Because I'm sure, you know, your headspace was very much into, you know, building, designing, and realizing your vision. But what about the quality of the software, the QA process? Or just leave it to your community?
I think it's such a great question. And I think what I try and do is ask as many people as possible. I think it's always, everyone has an opinion. And I think when you are building something and you're so close to it, it becomes your baby. You're super protective over it. You kind of like, oh, it's obvious that the user needs to press this button. Oh, it's obvious that, you know, that piece of text is related to that. But when you start getting feedback and people don't understand things, or maybe you know, for weird things on a certain OS or a certain device, it looks weird. Being really open to change and open to hear feedback. Some of the best feedback I've got in terms of like things that I can add to the app to make it fundamentally better has come from users. I built a word game last year off the back of a very popular word game, and one of the things in the app, when you played it, you had to wait 24 hours before you could play it again, which in hindsight is not the way I should have implemented it. But so many people emailed me or contacted me saying, oh, why can't it be at midnight that I can play again? And I was really scared about time zones and like, you know, any kind of like change in, you know, daylight savings or anything like that. You know, I didn't really want to mess with that. It's kind of like a joke within the programming world. Time is the most complicated thing to program, and boy, do I know it. But I think getting that feedback and changing it from feedback from users and players was incredibly powerful, because the gameplay experience now is so much better. But in my head, waiting 24 hours just made a lot of sense. So yeah, sometimes you can have tunnel vision on a way something is supposed to be, and just opening up yourself to receive that feedback, I think, is a very important trait to have.
Sorry, I'm mute again. I was just going to say that that's fantastic and that's really interesting, the approach you took. So same question to you, Alena, about the quality assurance process.
Yes, I completely agree with what Taiwo said about feedback, 100% the driver of growth. And we went even as far as arranging Zoom interviews with some of our users to really understand certain things. And there is even this, it's not me who invented it, but I think there is like this rule of 9 or something, that after 9 interviews, you get the full picture. Like you get 80% of information. It's a very little number of interviews that you have to conduct to get the main pain points or like the main feedback, because after that it starts repeating, you get a bit extra of information, but the key you got within the first like up to 10 interviews. So that's definitely true. However, there are some automated ways to also measure feedback. So you can read, depending on where you are, if you already posted your game on the App Store or Google Play Store, you can read reviews that people leave. And I think it should be part of your job, like to regularly check those reviews, because people often spot bugs which you missed during the most recent release. So your users are your best friends in this respect. Of course, if it's a larger team, you might have a quality assurance engineer who makes sure that the version is fully stable before you even publish it. But obviously, if you're like an independent developer, you often, I think up for the first maybe 5 years, my co-founders and myself, we were our quality assurance engineers. So every release before publishing in the App Store, we would go through key scenarios, like major critical scenarios, like payment related scenarios, registration related scenarios. We would just make sure that nothing really has broken them, because you never know. Code is very fragile. And also there are lots of different tools, analytical tools, like Amplitude UX Cam, where they record either the session of the user, or you can define which key events you want to measure and see on the user journey, does the user hit all the expected points of the journey or not? And if not, you can dig deeper. So there are like different ways of assessing feedback from users, automatically, programmatically, or in person.
So many options, and as you said before, I think in life sometimes it does help to narrow them down and have some framework. Otherwise, it's analysis paralysis with the different options. And actually, on that topic, I'm going to pose the next question to you, Alena, first. That given the variety of options there are, and I guess with programming languages and software houses, there's always a battle of dominance, but are there any particular preferences you have as far as, you know, developing award-winning apps? Do you have any preferences for programming languages or platforms, and why, out of interest?
Yes, it's a very good question. So maybe it's coming from my this personal preference to Google versus to Apple. I do like products that Google release. So they have Firebase, which is a very nice free-to-use analytical system. It's a bit complicated, but it's free to use, unlimited number of users, unlimited number of events. So they do support independent developers by providing lots of things for free. So I think Firestore, Firebase, Google Analytics, this is all family of Google products. In terms of programming languages, I think Taiwo touched it a bit earlier, this whole idea of cross-platform development. Because looking back at some of our areas of the app, I think we should have not built it natively on iOS and on Android separately, but rather build it cross-platform. And there are ways to do it. So depending on what's your ambition, if you want eventually to go on both platforms, on Google and Apple, it might well be worth looking into cross-platform development. So you write code once, and then you use it across both platforms. It actually works for most things, apart from recording or video recording. So all this kind of media-related content, it needs to be native, specifically iOS, Swift, or Kotlin. Yeah, and so I don't know if it answers fully the question. I might kind of have another thing and contribute more, but this is what came to mind first.
Yeah, and those initial thoughts are really powerful, because I think it highlights exactly how difficult these decisions are. That if you're choosing a particular operating platform, what kind of audience that gives you access to, or if you choose to build natively versus the cross platform languages. So difficult decisions to make that have various impacts. So same question to you, Taiwo. You spoke of Unity, but again, wondering if you have any specific preferences as you're considering kind of programming languages, platform, tech stack, in order to develop your award-winning apps.
So I think it's a very, very good question. And I think it really depends on the type of app that you're going to build. I think if you wanted to go down the gaming route, then Unity is great because it's free and there's so many resources available. You can also use Construct, which is another game building application, or Game Maker. There's quite a few other ones. Names are escaping me at the moment, but I'm sure if you do a Google search, there'll be loads that come up. But it really depends on what you're trying to do. I think if you wanted to build a simple to-do list app or a calculator app or something along those lines, and you had, you know, an iPhone or a particular Android device, Windows machine, or an Apple device to program on, that should really feed your decision in terms of the tech stack to use, because like I said earlier, they're very similar. When I look at Kotlin, or when I look at JavaScript, or you know, something in C# or Unity script, it looks very similar to what I'm building in Swift when I'm building iOS apps, iOS and iPad OS apps. So I think depending on the type of app, if you want to go down the game development route, I think there's loads of different things that you can go down. But if you want to go down the native app route, choose that. But also cross development using React Native or different solutions is also another great idea, because then you write once and then you can deploy onto multiple platforms. So yeah, great question. And yeah.
Many choices, but yes, you said it depends on what you're trying to achieve to help guide your decision-making process. Fantastic. Okay. So I have another question in mind, but let me open up to the audience again, just to invite anybody that may have questions they want to ask, either personally, as Rebecca kindly did earlier, or whether you would like to put your questions in the chat. Okay, there are a couple of questions in the main chat. Okay, so let me just read that out. Okay, so there is one from Jose. So besides user and exploratory testing, are you familiar with the Espresso and UI automated tools? Do you ever use them to write test cases for execution in CI/CD? Or would you recommend any automated testing framework? So let me put that to Alena first, and then I'll move on to Taiwo to give your thoughts on that question.
Yeah, so in terms of CI/CD, do you mean deploying of releases to production, or maybe I'm not quite sure about the question, but the point is about testing. It depends on your app. So for example, with our app, because it's about creation of songs, it's almost impossible to automate all the cases. So we are still using a lot of manual testing. So we do not automate our testing process.
Ah, interesting. Okay, so manual best for your app. Okay, and Taiwo?
Exactly the same. So I don't do any automation on my side. Everything is manual.
Okay, interesting. So the technologists have a preference for manual, and I think it's the point being also is that not everything is best optimized automated. So I think that's an interesting anecdote. Okay.
Yeah, I think for large apps like banking systems or large enterprise solutions where you rarely change the core product, you might just like add a few little bits and bobs over there. You have to run the full set of tests to make sure that the key critical scenarios still running smoothly with no errors and with expected results. So definitely makes sense there. But for like smaller apps or like more quickly changing apps, it's just the amount of effort you're putting into automating it with testing. It's just not always pays back.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Thank you for that answer. So it depends on the type of solution that you need to test. So that is great advice. So hopefully, Jose, that answers your question fully. Okay, next question. Okay, we're getting interesting now. So this one is for Taiwo. What if you have an idea of an app but no money? And I think that's a very good point, that maybe you're passionate about something, but you feel that you need finance or funding to develop it. So what are your thoughts on that, Taiwo?
I think that's a great question, to be honest. I think, to be honest, when I started, I had no money. So maybe I'm not, I don't have the best advice, because I guess the apps that I was making, monetization was like the last thing I just wanted to build an app really for myself, for the people on the train really. And I think going forward, there's lots of, especially now in the UK, I feel like there's a lot of interest for VCs and angels to give money to UK-based entrepreneurs. And I feel like that's the way, because a lot of the top talent is going to Silicon Valley, the States. You know, when you think about big tech within the world, the UK isn't really the first place that you think of. Most of the companies are either based in Asia or the States. So hopefully that answers the question. I think if I was in that situation where I had no money, I'd try and lean on as many free resources as possible. I think Firebase is a great example. It's something that I use completely free. So you can have enterprise level APIs and SDKs within your application. And then as your user base grows, as the app idea becomes something that you can monetize, it's a lot more lucrative for investors to get behind. So try and do as much with as little as possible. And hopefully that will be an incentive for people to back your idea and your project.
Yeah, that is sage advice. I think everyone likes a scrappy entrepreneur to support. So sometimes not having resources bring the best out of you, as far as being very, enterprising with the resources to hand. So great. Okay, next question. We have, okay, so from Jamie, what advice would you give to non-technical founders in recruiting a CTO or head of tech to build out an MVP? So minimum viable product, for example, agreements, things to watch out for, any general advice. So let me go to Alena first, and then I'll come back to you, Taiwo.
Yes. I've seen a lot of being part of the startup ecosystem here in London and generally in the UK and in Europe. I see a lot of examples of a great business idea, but not great technical execution. And it's really sad because sometimes people even get access to generous funding, but not but having the wrong person as a CTO or as tech team can like really kill the business. And I see it a lot. And in terms of, yeah, so I completely support the importance of this question. In terms of how to hire the right CTO, for me personally, it was our CTO is our co-founder. We have 3 co-founders, and we deliberately went it's like equals ownership to make sure that he feels fully included and really committed, because I think commitment is important. And as Taiwo said, like at this stage in today's world, you can get access to free, really stable enterprise level software and API if you know what to use and where to go. So it's just down to being motivated, and it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. It's really about motivation and ethics. And I think it's really important to look for these 2 qualities in the person you're hiring, because like yeah, I think sometimes people are good at selling themselves, but not necessarily good at like being 100% in. And I think that's what you want if you're building the business. Someone who is 100% in, same as you.
Yeah, great advice. And it is effectively a marriage of sorts. So you should be thinking along those lines. And then Taiwo, any thoughts to add about recruitment of a CTO or technical co-founder?
I can't really add any more to what Alena said, to be honest. I think that's really, really good advice about the motivation and making sure that you're hiring the right person for the right reasons. But it's really, really, really tricky to find people that you can trust, that are, you know, committed and motivated to be on the same journey as yourself. So I think the only thing I can add is don't be afraid to ask lots of questions, and don't be afraid to approach different people. You know, don't feel like because someone can sell you a dream. And I think it's really important to make sure that, you know, you talk to different people and find someone that really ticks all the right boxes.
And I actually just, if I may add something else because of what you were saying, and it kind of sparkled another thought. I think the question itself is maybe try to reposition yourself, or like, I wouldn't say in today's world we should divide founders in technical and non-technical. because it's not rocket science, and all these materials are available online. And many people who are now CTOs were not trained or didn't have degree in computer science. They just were brave enough, and I know it takes courage and it looks scary, but it's not rocket science. So I would encourage everybody who wants to start a business or build an app to not detach and say, oh no, it's not my area of expertise, I'm responsible for this. It's not rocket science, it's not that scary. Try to be more involved.
That is fantastic advice. And I'm going to wrap up this part of the event and thank our panelists for sharing your journeys and answering many of the questions. Just so you know, for the reference of attendees, any further questions, Al will be taking away and posing to the panelists so that you do get the feedback that you requested on your questions. So just to summarize, we have two amazing award-winning app CEOs that have taken us through their journeys, which required a lot of self-discipline and motivation and following their passions to create something that then turned into an app that eventually won them an award and hopefully will deliver the monetization objectives they hope in future as well. And I think what we've learned from this conversation is that a lot of the learning is self-directed. So it might be scary, but you just need to be curious, I think is a very powerful thing, the power of curiosity to then proceed and find out and learn about the different platforms and programming languages, and then go on that journey to build your first pilot app. And to Taiwo's journey, it could take 7 apps before you reach that particular stage. And I think leaning on Alena's journey is about following your true passion. So I think when you do that, then you can go on a development journey that ideally has the outcome of either your learning or learning plus producing something that will bring the world together and form communities. And I think that's the power of both of those apps. They've built communities, they've created families, they've caused tensions because people are so engaged with what you've built. And what a beautiful testament to the power of technology and the power of apps by creating a unity amongst people. So let me leave that there and also thank Nzube and Al for creating this opportunity to bring together BCS attendees and members and people who are interested in the world of the British Computer Society as well. So I'll just hand over to Al to conclude the event.
Thank you very much. As Mame-Yaa has already said what I was going to say, I just want to thank everyone for taking their time today and enjoy. I hope that something has sparked or even ignited even more as you go along your journey to making an app development in this ever-growing app economy. And hopefully we see you in a TFL bus asking a few people along the way as you go to all 7 sisters. Thank you very much for attending. I do appreciate your time. And that's about it.